Stéphane Dion, the President of the United States, saying earlier today that this is a difficult fight and that he wants more of his allies to step up. What do you say to that?
I say yes to that. Canada, Madame McNeil, will do more in a more effective and efficient way in order to supplement what our allies are doing. This is the aim of the Prime Minister Trudeau, and the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Public Safety. We are all working on that in order to have a stronger presence of Canada in the alliance to fight this awful terrorist group.
Okay. For a week now, the opposition has been asking in Parliament why Canada is pulling its 6 CF-18 jets out of air attacks on ISIS. And for a week now, we have not heard a direct answer.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Okay, well, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's listen.
In the last week, we've seen the Obama administration, Germany, France, and the UK step up their efforts and their airstrikes. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has ordered our CF-18s to stand down. Why is the Prime Minister stepping back from the fight when our allies are stepping up?
Canada has spoken clearly in this past election. They want Canadians and our military to continue to engage in the fight against ISIS, and we are committed to continuing to do that.
Okay, that is not a direct answer. What is the direct answer to why it's a good idea to pull out the airplanes?
It's true that we made a commitment during the campaign to replace our investment through the airstrikes by something that will be more helpful to the coalition. So it's what we are willing to do. We have a lot of admiration for what the Air Force of Canada has been able to do. But we are convinced that there are more effective and efficient way to add to what our allies are doing. For now, despite all our admirable efforts, we are delivering only 2% of the airstrikes, while there are a lot of needs that Canada may supplement if we focus on them, about the training of the troops, the training of the police forces, the building of the institutions. A long list of efforts are being identified, the measures that would be well done if Canada was part of it, and we're looking at that in order to announce a new plan that will come.
Did you ever consider, I mean, facts on the ground did change since you made that commitment to the Canadian public. There were the attacks in Paris, most notably. Did Cabinet sit and think maybe we should leave our planes in the fight?
No, because the decision to do something else than the airstrikes was not linked to the fact that we thought that this terrorist group, the so-called Islamic State, is not dangerous. It's because it is a dangerous terrorist group that we need to focus on a way by which Canada will be an ally more effective within the coalition.
What is the, let me put it this way, what do you think, you're a thoughtful person, you're known as a thoughtful person, what do you think the answer to the problem of ISIS is?
We need to stop this so-called Islamic State to be able to conquer villages, towns, and cities. And we need to conquer these towns and cities that they have in order to free them. And once they are free, to bring in these areas a great help, humanitarian, but also institutional, police, and so on, to be sure that once it's done, these people will be safe and will be able to rebuild their country.
Okay, here's what President Obama had to say after his very rare meeting with his national security advisors earlier today.
Just as the United States is doing more in this fight, just as our allies, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, Australia, and Italy are doing more, so must others. And that's why I've asked Secretary Carter to go to the Middle East. He'll depart right after this press briefing, to work with our coalition partners on securing more military contributions to this fight.
Okay, what do you say? He hasn't mentioned Canada. What do you take that to mean, that he has not mentioned Canada as a partner in this fight against ISIS?
The fact is that we're working very closely with the United States to see how Canada may redesign its own effort in the coalition. that will be very positive as a result. So he did not mention a lot of other allies in this enumeration, and I'm sure that once the plan will be released, all our allies, including the United States, will welcome what Canada will do.
Okay. Do you have any idea? Can you give us any specifics today as to what you're committing?
Okay, Madam McNeil, I'll just mention it. It's maybe the training of the troops, the training of the police, the building of the institutions, the humanitarian help. Humanitarian help will need to strengthen. The list is very long. And you know why the list is long? Is because our allies know how much Canada have a lot of skills, our men and women in uniform that are very professional, very courageous. They want us to be involved, and they come with a long list of proposals. And with my colleagues and the Prime Minister, we'll look at that and we'll come with a new plan.
Okay, so they have asked you, and that's what I'm really trying to ask you, is if you've made a commitment to these things or if they are still on the table.
They are still on the table. We did not make any commitment, but we are listening because we don't want to write this new plan at the back of a napkin. We want to do it with our allies in a very comprehensive way in order to be sure that every investment we'll do in Iraq will pay off at the end of the day.
Okay, let's talk about what happened in Paris in terms of climate change and the agreement that was reached over the weekend. I want to remind you of something that you said in Manila on November the 18th. Let's play that clip.
If you compare with what the science is asking us to do, it's very unlikely that Paris will deliver a 2 degrees Celsius agreement.
What's your reaction to the agreement in Paris?
What I was saying at that time is what we knew already there at that time, and we know today, is the addition of all the commitments made by the countries bring us to a world of about 2.7 degrees Celsius or even more. While we have made a commitment in Paris to have below 2 degrees Celsius and, if possible, 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. So there is a gap between our international commitment and the addition of our national commitments. And this gap must be fulfilled. And it's why in the Paris Agreement, and I was mentioning that at that time, we have an agreement, a commitment that every 5 years we'll look at where we are and we'll try to improve our collective efforts to protect the world against a warming of more than 2 degrees.
Okay. Do you think this agreement is going to save the planet?
Without this agreement, we would be in a very difficult situation to save the planet. With this agreement, we are much better equipped, and this is a great news.
Okay, so you're not convinced it will do the job, but you think it's better than nothing?
It's much better than nothing, and we have a tool to do the job.
Where are the challenges for Canada, Mr. Minister?
The challenges for Canada is the same than the rest of the world. We are the civilization of the fossil fuels, of oil, gas, and coal. Mm-hmm. Okay? And this is true for almost 2 centuries now. And we need to get out of there. It cannot be done overnight. This morning you took and I took my car, even though the Paris Agreement has been signed. So it will be over years and maybe decades. So in the meantime, we need to build up a way to strengthen our reliance to clean energy and green technologies. And it's exactly the platform Mr. Trudeau has been elected on.
Okay, $100 billion designated in this agreement to go to emerging or developing countries to help them change their energy mix, if you will. This is an agreement that's not legally binding. Most of it's not legally binding. How do you make sure that those countries will use that money efficiently and not be lost to corruption, for example?
We are in a world where we depend on the sovereignty of the states. Even though we would say it's legally binding, the way to make it really legally binding are very thin, because you need to respect the sovereignty of each state. We have made a moral commitment to reach our commitments. All these countries have done so, including Canada. And every 5 years, we'll review the improvement we have done on the ground. So that's the way we'll work. And Canada must stick to its words. We have made a commitment. We need to reach it. And if it is possible, to go beyond. As Madame McKenna has said, Madame McKenna, our Minister of the Environment, Catherine, who negotiated in a very effective way in Paris, as she has said, our commitment is the floor. If we may improve it, let's go.
Let's talk about your Prime Minister to close up. You've been part of the intellectual and political landscape of this country for many years. What do you make of Justin Trudeau's popularity around the world?
Well, I think there are three reasons of his popularity, Madame McNeil. The first one is his charisma and the image he has and so on. That's very effective in order to build the situation, the sense that something great is happening in Canada. But beyond that, you have also the fact that he and the Liberal Party have been elected on a platform where the government plays an active role in the economy. And that's quite a change if you compare with what happened in the last decade around the world. And the third reason is that Mr. Trudeau and the Liberals have been elected on an inclusive platform, while around the world you have a lot of governments that are unfortunately elected through mistrust between communities. In Canada, we resisted to mistrust and we voted for inclusion, and this resonates around the world.
You might be seeing that happening with the potential election of Donald Trump next door.
I don't want to point out a name, but it's certainly the case that it would be great if other countries were inspired by Mr. Trudeau and what Canadians have done at the last election and would do the same in their countries. We have seen yesterday in France at the regional election that people woke up and decided to say no to an extremist right-wing party. I hope that it will be the case everywhere in the world.